Welcome to the One Jewish Family podcast. We're here today with A.Y. Katsof, who's speaking to us from Eish Chodesh in Israel. And A.Y., tell us, share with us in terms of what you'd like to speak about today.
All right. Well, shalom, Neil. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I'll tell you, really, what I'm going to be sharing today is actually a very personal story. But it's besides just a personal story, I look at it as like the Jewish story, and it's international because it's going to be crossing a couple countries, Sudan to South Sudan to Uganda to Kenya to Ethiopia, so finally reaching Israel. And it's, I would say, what we call in Hebrew is girat ma'agal, closing of a circle of over 2,500 years waiting in limbo. And against all odds, finally returning to the land. But at the same time, it's still a personal story because it's, at the end of the day, it's me, and it's the personal families that I zoche, that I merited to help, and it's their lives. It's at the end of the day, the story is about two Jewish sisters that ended up in South Sudan, sold at the age of 12 into forced marriage and to having their own children in South Sudan. And it's very personal, also for me and also for them. And I could share with you a little bit of the story, the little bit amount of time that we have. And God willing, when the book will come out, you guys will be able to get the book. And it's already written, 100,000 words. It's going through editing now. And you'll be able to get and see the story. And what's nice about it, Neil, is that you were here at my house on Shabbat, and you met one of the sisters and their children, and you were showing me how important it is for the children to jump and to dance. And I saw just from the little bit of time that she was with you, I saw how she was being healed, how she was doing better. And from that, it made me understand the importance of this type of therapy. And from next week or in 2 weeks, she's going to be starting dancing classes. It's from money that I was able to raise, and hopefully we'll see. Maybe next time you come back, we'll be able to go to a concert that she'll be part of. What do
Wonderful.
you say? So we'll, I guess, start now.
Okay.
And the little story here that we have. We're not going to have any technical issues. Okay, so share screen and screen 2. There we go. You guys see the screen?
Yes, it started.
Okay, so first, just to get into the story, is when this is a picture that I took in Ethiopia, the Jewish community. They're making buna, their famous coffee. So I came to Ethiopia the first time a couple of years ago, and for me it was a big shock. I was sure the Ethiopian Jews, that they were all back in Israel in Operation Moses. For those who don't know, Operation Moses in the late 1870s, early 80s. For those who didn't see the movie Red Sea Diving Resort, basically the Jewish Ethiopians from North Ethiopia went west into Sudan. In Sudan, there was Red Cross camps. You guys can see the screen?
Yes.
And from the Red Cross camps, the Mossad was able to take them out and brought them to Port Sudan. From Port Sudan, they would take them on little boats into Sharm el-Sheikh, which was at the time Israel. When that was starting to have difficulties, they would actually land big planes in the Sudanese desert and fly them in. And towards early 1984, late 84, early 85, they were actually just taking them right out of Khartoum into Israel. About 15,000, a little less, arrived to Israel during those years. 4,000 died on the way. It's a lot of people. And then there was 88 people that went missing. This is a story of one of the 88 people that went missing. actually, what happened was that she traveled through Ethiopia, got to one of these Red Cross camps that you can see here. She was about a 14-year-old girl, and she ended up in a Sudanese prison. In the Sudanese prison, the head of the prison took her and married her and had children with her. And we're going to follow up on the story later, but just to understand what happened here. So her family continued and made it to Israel. This picture is actually one of the actual jeeps, trucks that took them from the camps all the way to the sea. This is the actual picture of the resort that was on the sea, that they would, during the day, be doing diving, and then at night they would be smuggling little rubber boats into this ship. This is the Bat Galim ship. This is Zimna, one of the Mossad agents, and these are the Ethiopians that just arrived. Ethiopian family growing up in Ethiopia. So when I heard about it, I decided I need to go and check out myself in Ethiopia. Here I arrived in Ethiopia, and these are pictures I'm sure that many of you have seen of the prayers in the synagogue of Ethiopia. And this is one of the pictures that I took. And when I noticed here, this is in Gondar, they're praying. So this is the boy on the left, his name is Chol. And I came up to him and I tried to understand, because I noticed he looks much more Sudanese than he does Ethiopian. The other boys look more Ethiopian. And I was talking to him, and he was telling me the story about his mother. His mother was the 14-year-old girl that I was telling you about, one of the 88 that went missing. And he introduces me to his mother, who's about a little under 50 years old. And that's here, this picture in the synagogue. And she brings me to her home. This is her home on the left, the little mud hut over here. And we sit inside the home and we drink buna. That's his mother making buna over there. And while she's making buna, she starts telling me the story. And she says how she's a 14-year-old girl. And she arrives in Gadaref, Sudan. There she ends up in prison. They say that she killed a Sudanese soldier who tried to do something to her. And in the prison, she's on death row. And the head of the prison pays money to the family and marries her. And then she has her first daughter named Fiat. Fiat means good in Dinka. The Dinka language is the tribe that she married into. Now you can see Fiat on the top left. And then she has another daughter named Susie. That's Susie. And then they have a boy named Riel. And then another boy named Chol. Chol is that boy that you saw in the synagogue. So I'm hearing this story, and I said, okay, so where this is Chol, there's his brother, where are the girls? And then she walks out, and she's crying, and she's praying to the heavens, like I said something wrong. And I looked at Chol, and I say, what did I say wrong? What happened? And she said, listen, this is culture. I said, what do you mean culture? He said, in the Dinka culture, when a girl is 12 years old, so the men from around come, and whoever pays the most cows, they get to take her. So I said, you sold, your sister was sold? And he said, no, it's not sold. They pay the father, thanking him for raising his daughter. And basically a man who is must have been well into his 30s buys his older sister, who's about 12, and the same thing with the next sister. And I said, well, where are they right now? And he says, we don't know. We haven't been in touch with them in a long time. I said, how is that? So he said, listen, the older sister, Fiat, when she was 12, she was married to a man named Khamis, and they had a little baby girl. They named the baby girl Ayen. Ayen was the name of the first cow that was paid for her mother, Fiat. And because the father missed the cow, and he had to pay the cow, so you name the baby after the first cow that was paid for. And the mother, Fiat, she was the little girl, now she's a mother, so she was abused. And she basically takes her little baby, Ayed, and starts traveling by foot back to her mother, the grandmother now, the one I met in the synagogue. And she travels back. Her husband finds out that she escaped. He goes and basically runs after her. It's a couple days travel, and gets her, and by force brings her back to their village in South Sudan, throws her in prison, takes her mattress out, feeds, puts the food on the floor that she should eat her rice on the floor, to teach her a lesson never to run away again. And ever since then, they haven't really spoken to her. They don't know where she is or her whereabouts. At that moment, it was kind of like a lightning that hit my heart. And for whatever reason, I felt a connection, and I said, listen, your sisters are like my sisters. And I kind of thought about my own children. And I said, if my children were in trouble somewhere in the world, what would I do to help them? And if I couldn't help them, so I would hope that somebody out there would be able to help them. So I tell Cho, I say, Cho, listen, you have to find them. And he says, I can't. How could I find them? And even if I could, how would we get them out? So I said, listen, we leave no one behind. We leave no one behind, and we do whatever we can do to save them. And that's the Jewish motto. We leave no one behind. So basically, we're looking for them. We're looking. I get him a smartphone. With his smartphone, he starts looking for them on Facebook. They don't have Facebooks, but he starts looking for his friends that he went to school with when he was a little boy, and he found some of them that had Facebook. And it took about 3 months where finally he found somebody that told him, oh, I know your sister now. She lives in Juba. She has 3 children. And he begged him, next time you're in Juba, please find her and get her number. And finally, they got her number. And we called her, and she didn't have a smartphone, she had a regular phone, and I started talking to her every day in Arabic. She speaks only Arabic, South Sudanese Arabic, and Dinka. And I'm telling her how ask her if she knows she's Jewish, and she says that now she found out that she's Jewish. And when she found out she was Jewish, it was like being reborn. It's like being connected. She always learned about the chosen people, that God rescued them from Egypt, and how she felt that she was being rescued. But now we had to figure out technically how to get her out. And there's so many problems, and it's too short here to explain the problems. But one thing they warned us about, they said she has an uncle. It's a high position in the army. And if he finds out, that's the uncle. And if he finds out, so there's a big chance that they'll kill her, or they'll take her and sell her for whatever, or ask for ransom, and then ask for ransom again, and we'll never see her again. So it was very, very hard. In the meantime, we're getting pictures of them. That's a picture of them, the 2 sisters in South Sudan. That's another picture of Fiat. That's also another picture of Fiat. But the whole time, we were all scared of him. This guy would come visit me every night in my nightmares. So we had to figure out how to get them out. And we talked to different Mossad agents, and they all warned us. They said, listen, South Sudan and North Sudan, there's wars and battles going on. People are dying. People's lives are worth less than a chicken. If anybody would find out that she has a connection to a white man, so there would be no chance. At the end of the day, I'll tell you like this. If you ever need to get anything done, wherever it is, the first thing that you need to do is find a guy. That's what you have to do, find a guy. You want to go somewhere, get something done, find a guy. Now, if he's a good guy, you're set. If not, you're in big trouble. Now, what do you do if your guy, for whatever reason, doesn't know how to do something? Your guy will always know how to find another guy, because guys know guys. That's what they do. So somebody connected to me with a guy in South Sudan Uganda. His name is Jacob. And what he does is he helps bring children from South Sudan to Uganda, and he puts them in schools over there, and he helps them out. He has over 300 children. I look it up, I see he's the real guy, it's the real thing. And he helps these children out. And it wasn't even about the money. He actually really believed in helping people. So I contacted him. I actually flew down to Africa, and I landed in Entebbe, Uganda. And I spoke to him, and I realized he's the real guy. He's the good guy. And we worked out the situations. And supposedly the girls were, his guy in South Sudan were supposed to meet the girls and put them on a bus. And we're waiting at the crossing, and it's past midnight, and we're looking around, and we can't find them, and different buses are coming, and we don't know, did they make the bus, did not make the bus? We haven't talked to them in 14 hours. And we were imagine being at this dark bus stop, over 100 degrees, felt 100% humid, and people are coming off the bus, and we don't know where they are, if they are, when they are, and all of a sudden we see the two girls. Now that moment, when the two girls came off the bus, is one of the happiest moments in my life, when I realized we did it. As they said in Arabic, Shabi Salah Islam Minister, Aknaz El Shabi Salah Minister. God brought the Jewish people out of Egypt. But at the same time, it was mixed feelings, because we understood, it's like you can see in the picture, the children are left behind. One sister has a baby, but the other children are left. They try to take them out. The families realized or suspected that something was wrong. They couldn't take them out. And they were afraid that if we would know that they left without their children, that we would cancel the mission, which is probably right. So in the meantime, we took the sisters out, but we need to take the kids out. We continued, we'll run forward. We basically, for a week, we tried to get them out. This is in Uganda. This is the father, this is Khamis, the husband of Fiat. So Jacob says, I have an idea. He calls up Khamis, and he says, Khamis, we have a scholarship for your children to go to school. Your kids could go to free school. Now, at the time, their kids were never in school. Never in school. They're living in little huts in different places in Sudan by aunts, by their grandmother, by different people. They're traveling around. And to win a free school in South Sudan is like in the United States to win the lottery. And he said, this is an amazing thing. This is great. But before I do anything, I have to take advice from the Dinka witch. So he goes to the Dinka witch and he asks her advice. And the Dinka witch does her thing. And he says, listen, your wife's family is trying to steal your children. Do not send them. And ever since, he doesn't answer Jacob's calls. So we realized we have to at least move the sisters. So what we did is we took the sisters and we started traveling towards their mother in Ethiopia. And the way to do that, you guys can see the map. They came from South Sudan down all the way to Kampala. Kampala, we went to the border of Kenya, Kenya to Nairobi, Nairobi up to the southern border of Ethiopia. Southern border of Ethiopia, we go up to Addis Ababa. Now, all of this, it's, on the map, it's lines. But this was over 8 days of traveling. And so many trouble, so many problems. Every border, there was trouble. There were robbers. The bag was stolen. Now, this is, remember, without any passports or anything. And just this 8 days, I could write a whole book alone. But for us, we're just going to do it with a couple of lines. And at the end, the most amazing thing, I remember when this happened, they arrived, the two sisters, and they saw their mother after about 10 years of not seeing her. And the powerful moment of two girls reuniting with their mother, when they never, ever thought that would happen, that alone for me to see that was worth being alive, just to see that. To take these two girls and have them reunite with their mother. Crying and praising God, and it was so powerful, so powerful, unbelievable. And I remember coming into when this happened. So after I came to the office of the head of Benjamin Regional Council, Mr. Israel Gantz, and he was the one who backed this whole thing, and he made it possible through all the bureaucracy and the permits and everything. And I was so happy. And he was like, "What do you mean you're happy? What's going on?" I was like, well, "Look what we did." He's like, "But what about the children?" I was like, "Listen, para para, we say in Hebrew. Slowly, we'll get there." And he says, "No, you have to do it now. No anything until the children are safe." So he was tough, but I understood that this is what I have to do. And we were trying for a long time. And I remember I called Jacob up and I said, "Jacob, if the children cross the border, I'll give you $1,000. Now, $1,000 in South Sudan goes a long way. People in South Sudan, some of them make $12 a month, $12 salary. Government worker can make $17, $18 a month." So he calls up the father again. He says, "Listen, I'll try again." And the father answered the phone. Jacob said, "Listen, why let your children die in South Sudan when they could live and prosper and get free education somewhere else?" And the father was in shock. And he said, "I thought you were my mother calling. That's the only reason why I answered. Because 5 minutes ago, my mother called and told me that my baby girl just passed away and I have to come back and bury her. And I was sure that you were calling again." And at the end of the day, Chamis said, although the Dinka witch told him not to send the kids, but he felt that it was divine, that right after his baby girl died, and she died just from South Sudan, very hot, maybe she had malaria, nobody knows. She was outside, dehydrated, they put her in her bed and she never woke up. And he felt like at the end of the day, he said that he's a Christian. And if God wants his children to succeed, so even the Dinka witch cannot tell him not to let his children prosper. So, but then Jacob's man had to give him money and he started playing games. He gave him the money and then he disappeared again for a week. And then a week later he came and he said, "Oh, I want to go, but I owe $300 and I can't leave without $300. And Jacob called me. He's like, "There's no way. He's playing games." I'm like, "Listen, it's a children's life. How much is a child life worth?" So he gives him $300 and then again he disappears for a week. And he's playing games. And then finally it was Friday night. Jacob calls and he says, "I think he's going to cross the border tomorrow." So here I go again. We have Operation Left Behind #2. And I go down to Africa. As you can see the picture with me in the dreadlocks. I don't know. Jacob told me I have to blend in. I don't know if he was serious or maybe he just had a bet on the side with one of his friends that he could get the white guy to put dreadlocks on. Either way, I'm down there. At the end of the day, again, they didn't cross the border, but again, we're playing games. And finally, a couple days later, they came. And they bring me the children. And my job is to bring them to their mother, who's waiting for them in Gondar. Now, when I get the children, I look at the paper and I say, "Jacob, we have 2 children. Remember, the third one died. So we have 2 children, but only 1 traveling document. How am I supposed to cross through 4 different countries with 1 traveling document?" And Jacob's like, "Haha, you don't see that in the document it says +1 child?" I said, "Jacob, are you serious? Under the luggage, it says +1 child?" And Jacob says, "Listen, when in Africa, you travel like an African, and this is how we go." And then he said, "Listen, with this document, they came from South Sudan to Uganda." I'm like, "You got a good point." So our idea was to travel just like what the mothers did, remember, through Kenya to Ethiopia. And we actually, these are me when the children came. Now the children must have also heard the story of Hansel and Gretel, because I brought chocolate to bring to them and they wouldn't touch the chocolate. They were sure that I was the white witch. They've never seen a white person before in their life. And all of a sudden they look at me, I look like a white ghost or something. And they were sure that I was giving them chocolate to fatten them up so they could eat them. But it turned out that I had something much more interesting than chocolate, and that was a smartphone, which I've never seen before. And you could tell by their faces just looking at the phone. And this is over here when we crossed from Uganda to Kenya. And then we're on another bus over here for another about 14 hours. And we're on our way to Ethiopia. This is at one of the hotels on the way. When the girl came in the breakfast room, her jaw fell and she pointed to the table. And I said, what? And she tells me, Buldukal. Buldukal in Arabic is orange. And I was like, oh, you want an orange? You could have one. And I said, and I gave it to her and she was holding and looking at it like it's the first time she's ever seen one in her life. I'm like, is this the first time you've seen an orange? And she's like, I've seen them, but I've never held one. I've never eaten one. So I helped her peel it. She tried to taste it and she spit it out. She said it was too weird for her to taste. And here we went through. This is me and the kids. And we sent a picture to her mother. You could see here the mother's in the middle with her other younger sisters, how happy she was. And we decided to take a little plane that would shorten the way for us. And that was probably our mistake. If we would have continued on ground, we would have gotten there no problem. But in life, you're never supposed to take shortcuts. Shortcuts sometimes are long cuts. And when we came to this little airport in the middle of Kenya, we were stopped by somebody from immigrations, and he asked to see their papers, and that +1 document didn't help. And when I came to, he basically stopped me. He said, listen, this is child trafficking. And I said, what do you mean? I'm helping these children. I'm bringing them to their mother. And he said, no, that's not how it works. It's child trafficking, and child trafficking is a minimum of 20 years in Kenya. And we're very strict about this. And you have 2 children, that's 40 years. I said, okay, let me see my lawyer. And he said, sure, no problem. You have 4 months until you get to meet your lawyer. That's the law in Kenya. And I understand this is serious. They locked me up in a little room at the airport with the kids, and I could see throughout the window into the like a bunch of officers speaking and laughing and trying to figure out what to do with me. I gave them, they took away my phone, they took away everything. And so I took out my backup phone from my sock. And I started sending messages to my friends in Israel, SOS. And I said, this is the time, because right now, not now, so never. And people they're coming in and out, and they're making fun of me, and they start telling me how I should start getting used to a Kenya jail cell. And this is what I have to look forward to. And it was really, really scary. And but they were trying to figure out technically what to do with the children. And here just walked in one of my children. Dad, you want to say hi? Say hi. This is my number 6. Hello. You're tired?
I'm calling.
Okay, soon, okay? I'm going to finish this and then, okay? Okay, good. Go to Naomi and tell her soon. Okay? I'm almost finished.
At that point, AY, how long has it been at that point from when you had last seen your own kids in Israel?
It was I think about a week, something like that. Landed in Uganda, till I got the kids, till I crossed, till I Kenya, close to a week. And, the whole time I was in touch with my children. Things just started to get hard. What happened is luckily, one of my connections, David Haivri from Israel, and he does a lot of Africa-Israel innovation. And next, Pastor Dennis. And Pastor Dennis, all of a sudden I see outside this like politician-looking guy, local Kenyan politician, and he comes and he signs $1 million Kenya shilling bail, and basically they took away my passports, and we had to show up every day to immigrations until they decided what to do with us. Still weren't off the hook. And I remember that night, I took them to a restaurant, and I felt so bad because the whole day we didn't eat. And when I brought them to eat dinner, so the girl asked, she said, but we ate already today. Why are we eating again today? Eating once a day. Now, as you can see in the picture here, they're so excited because I made them use forks. This is also their first time ever using forks. The next day, I brought them to get, the next morning, we said, first what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right to the Israeli embassy. And I kind of imagine like the movies, like you show up to the Israeli embassy, the helicopter comes, the rope ladder goes down, we climb up on the ladder, we're in Israel. Not happen. But before we went to the embassy, we had to do a little fixer-upper. We're at the clothes store, we got some new shoes, we got some clothes, and that's them. That's them after the little fixer-upper. And then the girl looks at me, Ayen, and she says, you, inta, in Arabic. She says, you also need a fixer-upper. I also got a little fixer-upper. And then we went to the Israeli embassy. At the Israeli embassy, it was very hard to get in without any papers. And they were supposed to know I was coming. Nobody knew I was coming. I got in. And the girl there looks at me, the deputy, and she says, listen, what you're doing, this could be child trafficking. And we can't take any part. Sorry, goodbye. And I said, but these are Jewish kids. These are 2 Jewish children. They have the right of return. And they're like, sorry, we can't help you. There's international law. And the security guard comes and opens the door and says, please leave. And I'm like, listen, it's really hot outside. It's a little bit of irritating. I just need to think. Give me a couple moments just to think what my next steps. This is not a place to relax and think. Please, you finished your service here. Please leave. And as I'm leaving, I get a text message from my connection in the Jewish agency. The whole time, I had this guy from the Jewish agency that he was like my guy, that he was like telling me what to do. And I get a message from him, and it says like this. Sounds to me that you could end up getting yourself thrown into jail for kidnapping, a charge possibly, I don't even know what that word means, exhiberated by illegally transporting children across borders. I'm unable and unwilling to give you any direction. You're able to see the message? And he sends that to me. So now my Jewish agency connection fell apart. The embassy falls apart. Then I get a phone call from my guy at work. And he says, hey, what's her name? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, come on, man. We know. Nobody leaves goes to a foreign country for long. There's no girl involved. I was like, what are you talking about? There's these 2 children. He's like, come on. I'm like, he's like, you know what? Forget it. But listen to me. I'm your friend. And I'm telling you, if you're not back here soon, you're not going to have any job to come back to. You're not either going to have any family to come back to. And I know what I'm talking about. So now I realize that my job is falling apart. It's answering my messages. Only my daughters were answering me, and everything was falling apart. And all I did is just look at the kids. And at that moment, I made a decision. I said, no matter what happens, the consequences of this, and there's going to be some really severe consequences. As long as it's in my hand, I'm not letting go of these children.